Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep, really deep into the story that captivated the world, the Titan submersible. It's a tale of exploration, innovation, and the raw power of the deep sea. Now, before we go any further, let's get our bearings straight. 5 people on this thing, headed to the Titanic. That's 2 miles down, can you believe it? About an hour and a half in, they went radio silent. A huge search found debris confirming the worst. So what exactly happened? What can we learn? That's what we are diving into today. It's hard to even comprehend going that deep, To the Titanic's resting place, 3,810 meters. That's like, what, 11 Burj Khalifas stacked on top of each other, and they were going all the way to the ocean floor. Unbelievable.
It really highlights just how hostile that environment is. The pressure down there is immense. Think almost 400 times what we experience every day. It would crush a car like a tin can.
It's a good thing our sources explain the difference between submarines and submersibles, right? I mean, that's key to all this.
It's a difference a lot of people miss. Submarines, with their ballast systems, they can travel independently, from port to the depths and back again. Submersibles, though, need that support ship, that lifeline to the surface.
So more like a hot air balloon tethered to the ground, not a car that just goes wherever.
Precisely. And in this case, that tether was the Polar Prince. Having to rely on something else for launch and recovery, it inherently makes deep-sea exploration way riskier.
And that's before you even get to the environment itself, right? I mean, the pressure, the dark, it's another world.
Completely alien down there. Pitch black, freezing cold, and that constant crushing pressure. Even communicating is a huge challenge. Signals barely make it through. Imagine exploring another planet, but instead of a vacuum, you're surrounded by miles of water.
Speaking of challenges, we got to talk about the Titan itself, not your everyday vessel. Carbon fiber hull, kind of out there, wasn't it?
Definitely unusual. You want to withstand that pressure. Most submersibles use titanium, steel, things that have been tested over and over. Carbon fiber, it's strong for its weight, sure, but at that depth, experimental, to say the least.
And this is where the story gets even wilder, at least to me. It wasn't just the hull. You had these titanium end caps, right? Smallish design overall. And get this, a viewport. An actual window to see the Titanic.
Can you imagine that ghostly outline emerging from the darkness? Awe-inspiring, to say the least.
And terrifying, right. But wait, there's more. The control system. You've heard about this, I'm sure.
Ah, yes. The video game controller.
You're kidding me. They used a modified video game controller for a multi-million-dollar sub. Was that cutting edge or just reckless?
It definitely made headlines. Sounds like science fiction, I'll grant you that. But it's not unheard of. Even the Navy uses similar tech for some unmanned submersibles. Adapting to new situations, right? Still, was it right for something taking people to that depth? That's the question.
Something to think about as we go. Now, we know this ends tragically, and that's where we hear about the catastrophic implosion. Do most people even know what an implosion is? I feel like it gets mixed up with explosion all the time.
All the time. An explosion, that's energy bursting outwards.
Yeah.
Fireworks, right? Force going out from a center point. Implosion is the opposite. Violent collapse inwards.
So the Titan.
The pressure at that depth, maybe the carbon fiber failing.
Yeah.
It all just caved in. Instantly.
Catastrophic meaning.
Instant. Total. Less than a millisecond. No warning. No time to react. Just crushed.
Wow. Hard to even imagine something like that. Really shows you the power of the ocean, doesn't it? But this wasn't just about pressure or design, was it?
Not even close. The environment, the Titan itself, those are huge factors. But there's another layer here. A whole series of warnings, and they were ignored. It's tough to overstate the risk involved here.
Seriously. And you look at the people on board, it's such a mix. You had those adventurers, right? Hamish Harding went to the South Pole, even space. And then Paul-Henri Nargeolet.
Former French Navy, I believe.
Yeah, and the guy had been to the Titanic wreckage like 30-something times already.
37, actually. A real expert on the Titanic.
Man, the stories he could tell. Then you had the Dawood, father and son. Shahzada, big businessman, and Suleiman.
The son was apparently pretty scared to go, but wanted to do it with his dad.
Just heartbreaking. Adds a whole other level to this, knowing that. And then when you start looking at what led up to all this, the sources paint a worrying picture. Safety concerns were raised, and let's just say the reaction wasn't great.
Putting it mildly, the CEO, Stockton Rush, he had some interesting views on safety.
One quote that really stuck with me, he said, and I'm quoting here, "At some point, safety is just pure waste." I mean, come on.
Suggests a willingness to push the limits no matter what. And in the deep ocean, that can be a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just talk. Our sources mentioned David Lockridge, the director of marine operations. He raised flags about the Titan's design.
It didn't go over well, did it? He ended up suing OceanGate for wrongful dismissal after speaking out.
Like a movie or something. The expert, the guy who knows this stuff, he's waving his arms and they basically fire him for it. Wild.
And that's not the end of it. There was that letter sent to OceanGate.
Oh man, you're talking about the 36 experts, right?
Ones who warned about a potential catastrophe?
Yeah. These weren't random people. They were experienced in submersible operations, and they were all worried about the Titan. OceanGate's experimental approach is what they called it.
36 of them. Gives me chills.
Yeah.
And it seems like those warnings were ignored.
Tough to wrap your head around. That many professionals, and their concerns were just brushed aside. What was going on at OceanGate?
Makes you think about the Titanic itself, you know?
Exactly. The unsinkable ship. A reminder that we're not always as in control as we think we are, especially with something like the ocean.
It's like, where's the line? Pushing boundaries is one thing, but there's got to be respect for the danger, especially in the deep sea.
Finding that balance, that's what it's all about. How do we explore and innovate but do it safely? That's the question we have to ask ourselves as a society. It's something that goes way beyond just this one event, you know? It's about how we approach technology, the natural world, risk itself. It's like a good reminder that no matter what we build, we can't control everything, especially not the ocean.
Absolutely. And this whole thing really forces us to think about the big picture. Innovation, pushing boundaries, that's great, but not at the cost of safety. How do we find that balance? That's the tough question.
Makes you wonder, like how many times do we ignore that gut feeling or brush off a warning? This story makes those little decisions feel different, more important.
We have to remember, progress shouldn't mean risking lives. The Titan is a perfect example. We need to get that balance right. Exploration is one thing, but protecting people, that has to come first.
And this wasn't just a one-off. This whole extreme tourism thing is getting bigger, right?
Yeah.
People paying a ton of money to push the limits, whether it's space, the ocean, whatever.
It's fascinating, isn't it? That need to explore, to see what we can do. But it makes you wonder about the companies running these things. What's their responsibility? How do we make sure they're putting safety first? Those questions are going to get even bigger as this stuff gets more common.
We started looking into one event, and it's opened up so many questions. The tech, the human side, the ethics of it all. Where do we go from here? What have we learned?
Well, for me, it goes back to respecting the ocean. It's powerful, unforgiving, and we can't forget that. We want to explore, sure, but we got to do it carefully, thoughtfully.
Couldn't agree more. So as we come up from this deep dive, let's remember those who were lost on the Titan. Let's remember how crucial safety is, listening to experts, and never underestimating the ocean. And let's honor them by building a better future for exploration, one where pushing boundaries doesn't mean sacrificing lives. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deeper.